And you are looking live at my home office. Hi, everyone. Happy Friday. Big day, big week, lot going on. We are at almost 110,000 subscribers to this YouTube channel. Amazing. Let's see let's get the business out of the way. Hit the subscribe button and hit the like button. If you aren't already a subscriber and you don't already like this video, just hit both. Just do that for me. Let's knock it out. It's easy. Boom. Done. If you want to ask a question, sorry, this is what I'm drinking right now. Tropical Smoothie Cafe, Mango Magic. Oh, and it's magical. If you want to ask a question, put it in the chat. If you want to make a donation, see that little rectangle with the dollar sign? That's your super chat. You can donate there. I will make sure you get your question asked. Other ways to support me, go over to Substack, which is just a newsletter service. If you're not familiar with it, it's a pretty big deal now. Go over there, check out what I write. You can get about 50% free, 50% you have to pay for. If you want to become a paid subscriber, $6 a month, $60 a year. You can also go to Buy Me a Coffee. A bunch of people have done that lately. Buy Me a Coffee. There's a link on my YouTube page where you can make a recurring donation to me just to support it. Look, here's the reality. Independent news creator. So just a guy who is doing everything I can to be fair and independent. So I'm doing everything I can to do that, and I hope you can support it. Two other quick things. One, I just started a members tier on YouTube. I'm working on getting it up and running. Please, if you've joined, thank you, number one. Number two, please be a little patient with me. Here's what you're going to get for sure. You're going to get the weekly video podcast I do with my friend Chuck Todd, former NBC host. That usually runs about an hour. It posts every Monday. You will get that. You will also get a second live stream chat a week. So I will always do this one for everybody on Fridays, but I'm going to do one midweek, probably Wednesdays, about 30 minutes on a Wednesday for members only if you've got questions you want to ask me. So those are the two big things you get if you become a member. I hope you at least look into it. Again, you're supporting independent journalism, just me doing this stuff. If you want to see this kind of thing in your world, you got to support it. And look, we've got members. Pocket Watch is a member. This is great. So you know how I do I think it's great. You know how I do balls and strikes, no matter what uniform the batter at the plate is wearing, kind of my shtick. So I called the member tier the Diamond Club, because that's what I feel like all those like fancy places you can sit in at baseball stadiums are called, the Diamond Club. So Pocket Watch, welcome to the Diamond Club. You Snooze, You News, welcome to the Diamond Club. Very much appreciated, both of you. One last thing, and then I'm getting your questions, I promise. So I think people know, if you don't, I'm a contributor at News Nation. I'm a political contributor at News Nation TV, cable TV channel. So tonight, I actually get to host an hour of cable TV. Leland Vitter, my friend, is taking a long weekend. So I'm going to host his show, which is it's called On Balance, 9 p.m. Eastern on News Nation, 9 to 10. Check it out. I hope you like it. It'll be, I think, probably a lot like this. So anyway, I hope you check it out. All right, here we go. John Eckemeyer. John, thank you for your donation. And John, I don't even see a question in there, but thank you for your donation. That is amazing. Let's see. Let's get to it. Oh, sorry. I just clicked on that. Sorry. Okay. Patrick Murray. Hey, Chris, have you been following what's going on in Brazil with the former president Jair Bolsonaro? He's being tried for attempting a coup. How will Trump react other than tariffs? I don't know. I know that I have not been following it super closely, Patrick, so I don't want to overstate things. I look, Trump does like Bolsonaro. I mean, we do know that. They had a relationship, but I don't know how he's going to react to that. Cillizza fan. Do you think it's a bit sad and suspicious that the number one late night show is ending? Whether you agree or disagree with Colbert, he captured an audience, doesn't seem like a good look for free speech. So this is a complicated one. Look, I think whether you're a Democrat or Republican or whatever, I think you can acknowledge that late night TV is not what it once was. I think a lot of that is because linear television, particularly broadcast, which all these late night shows are on, broadcast TV is dying. You know, it just is. I don't think it's going to die tomorrow, but it's dying. late night is part of that. Look, I grew up, let's see, in 1992, I was 16. So 92 to 2000 was right in my wheelhouse. Letterman, Leno, Conan, I think at some point in there. I mean, I loved all that stuff. It was amazing. And it was like a real driver in the culture. It's so much less a driver in the culture now. I mean, I know people who like Kimmel and watch it regularly. I know people who like Jimmy Fallon. I know people who like Colbert, but it's just not as big a deal. Now, that said, you're right that out of the late night shows, Colbert Show does the best. I don't think you can possibly draw a conclusion about the cancellation that doesn't have something to do with the fact that CBS's parent company, which is Paramount, is trying to merge with Skydance, and they want the merger to go through, and they don't want the Trump administration to get in the way of it. We've already seen them pay a settlement to Trump's, I guess it goes to Trump's White House or his presidential library, but pay off Trump for a totally frivolous lawsuit about editing a 60 Minutes Kamala Harris interview. So yeah, I mean, I don't think you can, that can't be, in my mind, that can't be dismissed. At the same time, I don't think that like late night or linear broadcast stations are going to be all that much longer for the world. So it doesn't surprise me. They pay Colbert a bunch of money, right? It doesn't surprise me they're trying to get that off the books too. So I think it's a little of both. I hope that makes sense. Nostalgic American, just wanted to say I appreciate the 1 p.m. time for this. No problem. I try to do 1 p.m. Again, I'm hosting a show on News Nation tonight. So I got to, after this, I'm going to drive in, got a bunch of calls, got to figure out what we're going to talk about and what I want to say. So I'm a little busier on this Friday than I normally am, but I really like to do this. It's why, by the way, that one of my offerings to members who join the Diamond Club, my membership tier on YouTube, is a second live stream, because I think people really do like that. Let's see. Human NC. Hey, Chris, which of the potential 2028 Dems do you see trying to move to the center on trans issues and immigration? Well, you know, Gavin Newsom is definitely going to run for president. And I think he has tried, especially on trans stuff, particularly trans girls in girls' sports. Newsom has moved more to the center. He's abandoned sort of that move to the center across a broader spectrum of issues ever since Trump called up the California National Guard. He's been more like just going after Trump. But Newsom on that. On immigration, you know, I mean, I think Steve Beshear, I always do this. Steve Beshear was Andy Beshear's father. Steve Beshear was the governor of Kentucky before Andy Beshear was the governor of Kentucky. Andy Beshear, sorry. I think that he will be kind of an interesting voice on that. I think Josh Shapiro will be an interesting voice on that. I think Gretchen Whitmer will be an interesting voice, trying to navigate a little bit more of a moderate sort of path there. The Real Slim Shady 3000. Does your lunch still consist of Starbucks meals? I do eat a lot of Starbucks protein meals, but today this is the Mango Magic, and if you can see in there, I subbed Splenda, so less calories. Got to watch the weight. Brett Green. Hi, Chris. What's your take on all this redistricting talk with California and Texas? I know California said they would, but they don't have an independent commission, so Newsom, but don't they have an independent commission, so Newsom can't do it? Yeah. I think this is going to be one of the things we're going to talk about on the News Nation show I'm hosting tonight, is the California versus Texas tit for tat when it comes to redistricting. The redistricting is a nerdy topic. I grant that. Now I'm into it, but I do think it's really interesting. Like, Texas is going to reopen its map before the 2026 midterms. They are doing so at the behest of Donald Trump. Greg Abbott the governor would like to run for president. He's not going to get crossways with Trump on something Trump wants. They're going to reopen it. Now, I heard Trump say he thinks they can take 5 seats out of Texas, which, if they could, would bump their majority up to 8 seats as opposed to the 3 they have now. California, I think, is a little more complicated because exactly what you said. It's an independent commission. Could Newsom call a special session and try to do the map that way? I suppose. I mean, those rules are always a little bit fungible. Watch Ohio. They may get involved. Very strong Republican legislature there. So there's a lot to kind of keep an eye on in redistricting. Again, I think Trump and Republicans understand they have a very narrow majority. If they go into 2026 with a 3-seat Republican majority, I think they'll probably lose the House. You know, if they can bump that up to 10, well, that's something else. You know what I mean? So Sam's still a Cillizza fan. Thank you, Sam. Sam says, excited to join the Diamond Club. You rock. Thank you, Sam. The Diamond Club is my membership tier, just in case you're just joining. Has anyone had worse political instincts over the last 4 years than Joe Biden and his team? How did he get elected president of the United States? Yeah, I was thinking of that over the last couple of days, Sam, because like right as the Epstein stuff was getting terrible for Trump, like clearly the MAGA base was not where he was on the issue. And all of a sudden, Joe Biden gives an interview about auto pen to the New York Times, like that ran last week. And I was like, what? Why are you doing? Like, just if you haven't talked to him in 4 years, why do you need to talk to him now? I mean, I'm glad he talked to the New York Times, but weird timing. And then Hunter Biden goes on Jamie Harrison, the former DNC's chair's podcast, and talks about how the only reason that they lost the election was that Democrats weren't loyal to his dad. Like this whole myth, fantasy that Joe Biden would have won the 2024 election, which he wouldn't have. Yeah, bad political instincts. How did Joe Biden get elected? Because we were in the midst of a pandemic that Donald Trump had broadly been judged as failing to meet the moment. Biden was normalcy. Biden was a return to kind of like what we expect out for government to do. And I think that argument had more power, Sam, when we were in the middle of a global pandemic. I think that's the answer. Let's see. Tara Reid, not that Tara Reid. Aside from Abraham Lincoln, who is your favorite U.S. president in history? Could be for fun reasons, not necessarily what they did. Okay, so I am going to I'm going to write this down. As people know who follow this regularly, I take all my notes on like what to write about on these favorite. I know this is great, really fun for you to watch me write. Favorite presidents. I might do this for Substack and make a video out of it too, which is like my favorite presidents. And by favorite, this is how I define it. The ones that I find most intriguing, complex, interesting. So mine always has been Nixon. Nixon and LBJ are the two that I think are just sort of fascinating in terms of their internal machinations and their external machinations. They're both president at critical moments in the 20th century. Nixon to me is the most because he was so scheming, but also like incredibly thin-skinned, like a huge sports fan. I mean, there's so much psychologically there with Nixon that to me it's Nixon. But I'd love to hear who yours are. Great question. Thank you, Tara. Brad David, what do you plan to do for your big 50th birthday this year? So yes, next February, I turn 50. I know I only look 25, but I don't know what to do yet. My wife turns 50 before me. She'll be 50 in December. So we may do a joint kind of party of some sort. I don't know. Be fun. If you have ideas, tell me. Tabby D. Hey, Chris, what are your thoughts on Gavin Newsom's 2028 chances? He seems to be more in the news lately. So, Tabby, over at my Substack, I think this was last week, I ranked the 10 Democrats most likely as of right now to become the party's nominee in 2028. Obviously, very early. But I put Newsom at number 2. Behind Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. I think he's had a really good first 6 months of the year. He's gotten a lot of attention. He's kind of emerged in the last 2 months as like the main Democratic foil to Donald Trump. That's a position he's still trying to keep. So I think he has a real chance. My issue with him, and I don't know what he can do to change this, is he's been in politics a long time, and I don't know if people want that anymore. And second, he's a California guy, right? He was the mayor of San Francisco. He's the attorney general of California. He was the lieutenant governor of California, and he's the governor of California. Like, he's had a lot of jobs in California that I think you could, if you were a Republican, really bash him on, like, California's much communist, like they did with Kamala Harris. Let's see. Sam 2. NBA question. Does Damian Lillard have the ability to actually help the team he lands with, or is he past his prime? I think both of those things can be true, Sam, too. I think he is past his prime, especially recovering from an Achilles injury. I mean, I know people come back from that, but it's a hard injury to come back from. I think he can still score. He's never been a very good defender because he's kind of undersized for a guard. But he can score. I think he's probably a good second and a half to third option. Second option on a low playoff team. Third option on a good playoff team would be kind of my thought. Jim, thank you for the donation. Jim says, if Democrats lost twice against such an unpopular candidate, what needs to change? Well, the biggest thing, Jim, and we are definitely going to talk about this on the show that I'm hosting on News Nation tonight, is Democrats have to be for stuff, not just against Trump. Right now, I think most people think, oh, the Democratic Party, they hate Trump. Or the Democratic Party, they're too woke. Or the Democratic Party, they're too weak, right? People don't. They need to have an economic message that they're for. They need to have a foreign policy message that they're for, right? There needs to be things that they are for proactively. People want to vote for something, not necessarily always against something. And I think right now, I think in 2016 and 2024, 2020 was such an anomaly because of the pandemic. But in 2016 and 2024, I think the big mistake Democrats made was they just assumed that being anti-Trump would be enough, right? Well, they're not going to vote for this guy. Well, they did vote for that guy because you got to tell them what you would do more, and they didn't do a whole hell of a lot of that. I think that's the biggest problem. John C. says, what's the 2026, state of play? Dems seem to be in good shape to take House and seems like they could at least cut down a Republican majority in the Senate. North Carolina, open seat. Georgia, lean D. Maine could flip. Thoughts? Yeah. So, John, I'm going to do a big video about this next week, but I think about the Senate. I think right now Republicans are the underdog to hold their House majority. Just looking at historic trends, when you have a president who's under 45% approval, that president's party typically doesn't do particularly well in the midterm election. So my guess is Democrats take control of the House, unless we see redistricting in a bunch of states and, Republicans gain a bunch of seats before 2026. But, I still think that. Senate side. So I've been really guarded, I think I would say, about Democrats' chances in the Senate because they need 4 seats. They're down 3. They need to win 4 because J.D. Vance would break all ties in the Senate. So they need to gain 4 seats. It's actually harder than you might think because just the map, you would think the map would be good. I'm just going to type in the Cook Political Report because that gets me my ratings here. But you would think the map kind of looks good for them in that there's 22 Republican seats up to only 13 Democrat seats up. But here's the problem. Most of the Republican seats, with the exception of Maine, are in places that Donald Trump won. So Kamala Harris won one of the 22 states where there's a Republican running or a seat open there, Maine. There are more seats that have come on board lately. Look, Iowa. I think Joni Ernst might retire. Even if she doesn't, that could be a real race. Ohio, John Husted is an appointed senator. Could be a race. Texas, John Cornyn would lose if the primary was held today to Ken Paxton, which gives Democrats a chance to win. Maine, Susan Collins keeps winning as a Republican. She's been in there since 96, but you never know. And then the North Carolina open seat, I think, is probably Democrats' best chance to win. On the other hand, I think John Ossoff in Georgia is a toss-up. Michigan is probably a toss-up, maybe slightly lean Democratic. Minnesota leans Democratic. New Hampshire's open seat leans Democratic. So, it's more possible, and that I think is going to be the theme of my video. It's more possible today than it was January 1st. But I wouldn't say it's likely at this point. Michael Gates. Michael, thank you for the donation from across the pond. Michael says, hey, Chris, Trump's base clearly wants him to present an Epstein client list full of Democrats in high places, and he just doesn't want to do it. Why? Well, Michael, let me just say this. So I'm not sure that that there's actually a list of people who definitely participated in the illegal stuff that Jeffrey Epstein was doing, whether it was on his island or anywhere else. I think there is a list of names of people who were associates and ran in the same broad circle as Jeffrey Epstein. My guess is that Donald Trump and Bill Clinton are on that list because we know they both knew Epstein. We know they both flew on Epstein's private plane. So what's hard about it is if you just kind of release a bunch of names, people are going to, of course, assume all of those people were involved in the sexual trafficking and sexual exploitation of very young girls. That's, I don't think, necessarily what those names would mean. Maybe some of those people were, but not all of those people. So I don't know. I don't know if Trump is engaged at that level. I just don't know about releasing all the names unless the DOJ knows that this list of people are people who we have documented as taking part in the illegal activities that Jeffrey Epstein was engaged in. I hope that makes sense. Let's see. Oh boy, sorry, just jumped around. Michael Gates, thank you for your other donation. I'm just seeing it. I'm just scrolling through folks. Just want to make sure I didn't miss anybody. Okay. All right. Let me go back up. Sorry, a lot of questions today, which is amazing. Alan Barr 1975. Can you have one video where you don't beg for subscriptions? No. Alan, because I'm not begging for subscriptions. I'm saying the way that I can keep doing this is if people subscribe. Like, you got to ask if you want people to do it. You can't go in, if I'm selling shoes and I go into a shoe store and say, you should really carry this brand, and I don't, or I present this brand and I don't say, so will you carry this brand? I'm much less likely to make the sale, right? I need you to support me. It's not complicated. This is not free. To pay my mortgage for my house, to pay for anything, groceries, and, like, I need to make money. So yes, I'm going to continue to ask, especially because subscribing on YouTube is free. I mean, I'd love to have you be a member of the Diamond Club, the premier membership organization that gets you some perks, but like, doing my best. Ann Sorensen, I did answer about the Late Show and Colbert. I think it's some that those shows don't make that much money anymore, and they pay those people a lot of money. So economic is part of it. And part of it, I think, too, is like Paramount probably doesn't want a Trump critic there. Let's see. Aaron L., judging by ankles alone, how close are we to President J.D. Vance? I see what you're doing there. Look, I'm not a doctor. Trump talked about it, or I was surprised they talked about the fact that his legs are swollen. I mean, he's a 79-year-old man. I don't know. Look at the actuarial tables. But like, yeah. R. Alejandro. Hey, Chris, why is it that the Wall Street Journal only described the contents of the Epstein birthday letter from Trump rather than publish the actual letter? Wouldn't seeing the actual letter add credibility? Yes, it would. Now, I did not. I may have missed whether they have the letter in their possession or if they were just shown an image of the letter and were able to verify it. If they have the letter, they should publish the letter. Yes. Transparency for journalists is always the right answer. Dan W., love your piece on the congressional softball game. Thank you. So I was the sideline reporter. This was awesome. Sideline reporter for Monumental Sports Network, which is a local sports network here in DC. For the congressional women's softball game on Wednesday night. I wrote about it. It's awesome. Go over to my Substack. It's a free post. You can read it for free. Just become a free subscriber. Thanks, Dan. I appreciate it. Dan says, really shows the best of politics. Can we watch your show if we don't have Monumental Sports Network? Not much value for someone outside DC. I think, Dan, first of all, Monumental does post some of the clips on YouTube, on their YouTube site. The other thing is, I think you can get the app, which is, there's definitely an app, and I think you can subscribe to the app for cheaper than what you would pay for the Monumental overall subscription. It's called Monumental Plus. So check that out. But thank you. Very kind. Ryan Ringel, Chris, in your opinion, who is the most effective legislator in the Senate and the House? Thanks. Oh, interesting. I don't know, Ryan. You know what, Ryan? That's a great idea for a post or a video. Let me look into that and get back. And, effective is hard because I think a lot of people are like, they haven't signed on to any bills, especially in the House. Like, co-sponsoring bills is not necessarily a sign of effectiveness. But let me figure out if I can get a relatively objective way to measure that and then go from there. Great idea. A lot of good ideas today. Vibes and stuff. Thank you for your donation. Vibes says, what do you think about Jon Ossoff being the Dem nominee for president in 2028? Well, people ask me this all the time. Jon Ossoff, who is a senator from Georgia, needs to win re-election first. Okay. He's running in Georgia. It is a state that Donald Trump obviously won in 2024. I think Ossoff's going to have a really hard race. Now, that said, the Republican field is kind of meh at the moment, but I think Ossoff will have a real race. If he wins that, sure. Although I continue to think, I know I say this every time somebody asks about Ossoff. To me, Raphael Warnock, the other senator from Georgia, is a little bit more appealing as a candidate, but what do I know? Pocket Watch, thank you for your donation. Thank you for becoming a member of the Diamond Club. Says, belated congrats on passing 100,000. Thank you, my friend. I'm thrilled. Melon Man, let's say Andrew Cuomo does win the mayor's election in New York. Where does his political career go from there? I mean, I think that Andrew Cuomo would like it to go to the White House. I don't think it will. I think he has a chance at winning the mayor's race. I mean, I think it's a four-way race right now between Zoran Mamdani, the Democratic nominee, Cuomo, Curtis Sliwa, the Republican nominee, and Eric Adams, the current mayor who is running as an independent. They're all going to take a chunk of the vote. So the win number is probably in the 30s. I think Andrew Cuomo could get there. I think Mamdani still has to be the favorite, considered the favorite, but I think he could get there. I don't know that maybe he could run for governor again. I don't think he's going to be president. I just don't. Yes. Brett Green says to Alan Barr, it's almost like he needs to make a living. Yes, I need to make a living. I mean, it's just that simple. This is my job. I don't have any other job. Brett Green said the audio is cracking. Might need to unplug and replug your mic. Hold on. Let me see. I'm going to turn it down a little. I'm going to get a little further away. Tell me if that's any better, because I know people are getting a crackle. So tell me how that's going. Let's see. So tell me if that's better. Sorry about the crackle. Daniel Ownbay. How is Trump not enforcing the TikTok ban different than a governor not enforcing an old law from the 1800s? It's not different. It's the whole TikTok ban thing makes me insane. Here's the deal. Congress passed a law saying that TikTok had to be sold within 180 days, okay, to an American buyer, or it had to be deplatformed off of U.S. App Store. Okay. That was signed into law by Joe Biden. The Supreme Court ruled that, yes, they in fact can do that. And then Donald Trump was like, no, we're not going to do it. I mean, it's ridiculous. You can't, it's like not how the world works. Like, it's not only signed into law, but also the Supreme Court validated it, that they can do this. It is ridiculous, Daniel, and I think they should it should get more attention. The thing is like nobody really wants TikTok to go away. Melon, thank you for your donation. You always say how you don't have any big media companies or execs telling you what to do. Does that mean CNN and the Washington Post told you what to say? Great question. No. But what I would say is they didn't. And I know it's a really popular narrative when mainstream media people like me leave to be like, and the man would never let me say what I wanted to. That really isn't the case. What I would say, though, is like in this day and age with Jeff Bezos putting a real thumb on the scale at the Washington Post, with Disney making ABC settle with Donald Trump on a ridiculous defamation suit, with Paramount putting Paramount settling with Trump over CBS News and this ridiculous, totally ridiculous editing thing about the Kamala Harris interview. It seems to me more and more and more obvious that these places are just, they are solving for profit. Okay, whether you're a billionaire or a publicly owned company, you're either solving for your own profits or solving for your shareholders' profits. But I'm not doing that. My only shareholders are you guys. You know what I mean? Like my only investors are you guys. And so I do think that gives me a little bit more freedom to say and do what I want as the corporatizing of media becomes more and more obvious. But thank you for the question. Let's see. Andy H. Hey, Chris, will this Epstein situation be irrelevant to Trump supporters in a few months? I can't think of anyone who doesn't already have a pretty fixed opinion about him. Yeah. You know, Andy, I think the way that he has handled it or not handled it all that well, you know, is telling in that it is, it's a very rare example in his 10 years sort of dominating the party where there's an obvious split within the party and not everyone is with him and doing exactly what he wants. That said, do I think it's going to radically change people's opinions about him and that like are MAGA people going to abandon Donald Trump over this? I don't think so. And I'm with you. I think opinions about him are very much set. You know, he might move up or down a few points, but I think it's really hard for him to move like drastically up or down. KS, hey Chris, question. Do you talk to your kids about politics? What is your book recommendation for a teenager to get some idea of democracy, civil rights, etc.? Number two, what is your take on Javier Milei? I don't really have a Javier Milei take, so let me just do number one. You know, the book I always recommend to people, it's more than a teenager wants to read, is What It Takes, about the 1988 presidential campaign. I don't really talk to my kids about politics. When they ask questions, I try to answer those questions as best I can. I don't know if I have a really good recommendation about politics books that might get them interested. Let me think on that. Sorry, KS. On the spot, I can't think of it. For those in the back, says, I think that's the JRE Clips YouTube channel gets more hits. It's shorter. Nobody has time for a 2-hour show anymore. JRE Clips YouTube channel. I don't know what that is, but I take your word on it. Maybe I should know. Maybe I'm not. My ability to diagnose and decipher acronyms is not high. Let's see. Dennis Morrison says, hi, everybody. Hi, Dennis. Let's see. Jackson Rip Home says, you are, in my opinion, a much better reporter on your own. Thank you. That is very kind. Derek Rawlings, hope you had a chillish vacation, Chris. I did. I was in Seattle. It was lovely. I will say this week has been wild, man. Like, I've been doing a ton of filming for Monumental Sports. I was a sideline reporter for the women's congressional softball game. I am hosting this show tonight on News Nation. It has been a lot. Mitchell Buck, tell Uncle Tony I say hi. How did you meet Leland Vitter? What is the best way to build a credible third party? I met Leland by doing News Nation. I didn't know him before. Great guy. Best way to build a credible third party, start from the bottom up. Don't start in the presidential race. Start at city council and state house and state senate races. Have some wins there. Start building a bench. Don't start from running a presidential candidate. There are too many hurdles, and presidential candidacies are too partisan and polarized to really make a difference, in my opinion. Famous, love that name. Thank you for the donation. Michigan U.S. Senate candidate 2026 Democratic primary. Stevens endorsed by AIPAC. Abdul endorsed by Bernie. I hope mainstream will go for McMorrow. Will you cover? Yes. It's a great race. I think Haley Stevens, who's the sitting member, and Mallory McMorrow, who's a member of the state legislature, are probably the two front runners. Maybe give a tiny edge to Stevens, but not a lot. I like Abdul El Sayed. Good guy. Interesting guy. Met him right after he ran for governor in the governor's primary. He did a bunch of CNN stuff, so I would meet him there. Interesting guy, interesting ideas. I think he'll probably come up short, but that's a good race with good people. Melon Man. Melon, thank you again for your donation. Melon says, you mentioned before how you plan to vote but didn't. Who would you have voted for? Who is your favorite president policy-wise? Who would you vote for in New York City? All right, so here's the problem, and I know people are going to hate this. I have spent so long looking at politics through a reporter lens, and I never really was into politics as a kid, so I haven't looked at it through a reporting and journalism lens, that it's really hard for me to go and see it through like a more partisan lens. So I write so much about it. I'm involved so much in it that I don't see it through like, oh, I would definitely vote for that, or I would definitely vote for that. I'm mostly just like, okay, that's an interesting story, or, oh man, he really shouldn't have said that, or that's bad. I think that's bad for policy or whatever. So I know that's hard for people, but like, that's the problem. When I go to vote, I'm like, I just don't look at it through that lens. Anyway, Judith Herbert, I wanted to welcome you to the Diamond Club. For people who don't know, Diamond Club is just the membership thing I started last week. Please, I beg of you, this is me begging, by the way, guy who said I'm begging. I beg of you to be patient with me. I am working on building it out. What you will get, and it might take me longer than I would like, but what you will get is every Monday, I do a video podcast with my friend Chuck Todd, formerly of Meet the Press and NBC. You will get the full video of that with transcript. Probably posted Monday afternoons. You will also get, probably on Wednesdays, exclusive access to a 30-minute live stream chat just like this, only for members. So I'm going to do a second live chat, so it'll be a smaller group. Just stick with me. Judith, thank you for supporting me. anyone else who becomes a member, stick with me. I promise I will make it worth your investment. Just give me, I got a lot of things going on, so I'm just trying to get everything up and running. Brendan Fleming. Brendan, thank you as always for the kind donation. Brendan says, keep up the great work, Chris. No problem. Do you think we'll ever see a situation where a candidate wins 400 plus electoral votes like a number of candidates in the 20th century did, or is the country too divided? Great question. Yes, at some point we'll see it, especially if you're young, because you've got, 50, 60 years left. I don't think we'll see it in the next 2 decades, Brendan. I don't know that, but the pendulum of politics always swings, right? It always swings back and forth. So it will swing back. Look, Reagan in 80, Reagan in 84, George H.W. Bush in 88. So 3 consecutive presidential elections. They all won over 400. Reagan twice and Bush once won over 400 electoral votes. You'll have a run like that at some point for Democrats, I think, or maybe for Republicans. I just don't think it's going to happen anytime soon. Let's see. Slow J, Chris, do you have any thoughts on the toughen up Democrats narrative? Yeah, look, I think Democrats, I've talked to a bunch of Democratic strategists and Democratic elected officials about this. The perception of Democrats is that they are weak. Nobody wins on that. Now, I don't think you have to be like Donald Trump and be like, we need to treat protesters more roughly. I don't think it has to be that, but I think you have to show that you are willing to fight for the values you believe in. The issue is, most people don't know what values Democrats believe in. As I said before, most people, the only thing they really know is Democrats are anti-Trump. So yeah, I think the toughen up thing is fine. Again, I don't think it has to be I go to UFC fights and I love Joe Rogan, but I think standing up for kind of what you believe in is worth it. Dragonfire, the redistricting was planned before the tragedy of Mystic Camp, but that's the excuse. Yes, they're calling a special session to do a bunch of things, some disaster relief, Mystic Camp being one of them, but the redrawing of the lines also being a thing. Mobius 981. I would love to see Stephen Colbert give Lindsey Graham the boot in South Carolina. It's Colbert's home state. Yeah, I'm sure you would love that, but Stephen Colbert, and he is from South Carolina, Stephen Colbert is not going to get elected statewide in South Carolina. Way to the left for that state. Greg Anderson. Hey, Chris, do you think Zoran Mamdani could run for president or Congress in the near future? Do you think more Democrats in Congress should support him? Honestly, being the mayor of New York City is probably higher profile and more powerful than being a member of the minority party in the House. So I don't think he would run for that. Could he run for president? Sure, at some point. Do I think more Democrats in Congress should support him? I think you can embrace parts of Mamdani, the effectiveness of how he communicated, especially in social media and that sort of thing. The kind of energy and passion he brought to it without necessarily embracing all the things he said, whether it's about, the globalize the intifada or free busing or city-run grocery stores. I think you can. I think you could and should embrace pieces of that, but not the whole thing. Richard Cohn, Richard, thank you for donation, and not even a question. That's so kind of you. Dakota McGuire. Democrats can win by getting an orange spray tan and wearing a bad wig. Yeah, I see what you did there. Let's see. Escape to Nerd Mountain says James Monroe, what a rock star. See, that's okay, so your favorite president. You Snooze You News says Teddy Roosevelt was the best. Dr. Banana said your audio is a bit crackly today. Yes, that is annoying. Hold on, sorry about that. Let's see. I'm trying to get people who have not asked questions. So if I skipped you, that's the reason. Sue Ducato, South Carolina Democrat here. I've repeatedly said to candidates to forget preaching to the choir and actually found out how voters feel. Yes, totally agree. Again, I'm sure it's super fun to bash Donald Trump and say he's got an orange spray tan or whatever. That's not going to win you a presidential election. You got to be for stuff. Thoughts on Ralph Norman running for governor? He might. I think Nancy Mace is probably going to be the Republican nominee for governor in South Carolina, and she might be the governor. Dakota McGuire says Nixon, Bill Clinton, and Harry Truman are my favorites. Love it. Let's see. Luke Groth. Chris, I saw a survey recently that had 59% of Americans overall supportive of Medicare for all and a higher share of Democrats. Why is this not a more popular policy among Dem lawmakers? Here's the thing. I think lots of people want everyone to be covered, okay, by health insurance. The problem is it's well, that costs a lot of money and we need to raise your taxes or find another way to do it. And then people are like, wait, no. So That's the problem. That is the issue. Maybe support would stay the same. My guess is it would go down. Phil Reinhart says, why no Cory Booker in your Democratic top 10? He was probably number 11, Phil. So like, I think he has potential for sure. Maybe I should have subbed him, Mark Cuban, out for him and put him at number 10. I just think there's going to be room for an outsider who's not ever been elected to anything before in the Democratic Party and the Republican Party, by the way. And so I that's why I went with it. H says, what's the worst job you've ever had? When I was 16, I got a job working at Friendly's. Now, if you're from New England, you know what Friendly's is. There's very few of them anymore, but back in the 90s, they had like grilled cheese and patty melts and that sort of stuff and shakes and ice cream. They had good ice cream. And I was a dishwasher for them. And it was in the summer of 93, 94. And all I did was wash dishes. There was a machine, but you had to like load it up, put it through. Hottest, sweatiest I've ever been. Brutal job. People are disgusting. What they leave, like that you have to then try to clean, people like fries, ketchup, and ice cream. Disgusting. That was my worst job. It was also my first job. Let's see. For those in the back, I still need a book for the now. It's probably going to be philosophy. So for those in the back, let me recommend Cal Newport, Georgetown professor. He's written a bunch of books. He's got a great podcast. I just got turned on to him relatively recently. Check him out. That might be interesting if you're in kind of that kind of space. Franz George Leopold Pagel, finally making it. My favorite 4 named regular. I usually have to bring my 3-year-old at this time. Thanks for trying my name every time I show up. Questions coming. Okay, gotcha. Let's see. Hold on. Jim says, I remember Friendlies. By the way, folks, Jim says Fribbles. Yes, those were so good. How is the microphone doing? Number one, if it's not working, I may try to plug it and unplug it. But my biggest worry in doing that is that I can't get reconnected. So I may not do that. And we may just have to deal with the crackle. Okay, Brett says there's still a crackle. All right, I will work on it for next week. Sorry about that. Dr. Banana says Friendly's was great, except they had deliberately slow service. Well, dude, the amount of dishes that they produced, brutal. Spockability says it's still not great and it's still crackling. All right, let me end there because I don't want you guys to have to be subject to this anymore. Let me just, before I go, if you don't have plans at 9:00 Eastern tonight, turn on News Nation. Just, you can find it on your cable dial, your YouTube TV dial. Turn it on, check it out. I will be hosting. I think it'll be fun. So try that. Just support me. I appreciate it. The other way you can support me, become a subscriber, which is free here. If you want to become part of the Diamond Club, which is my membership group, do it. I'd love to have you. I know I will make it worth your while, but again, I beg a little patience there. But at a minimum, subscribe to this. Just hit the subscribe button. You'll get tons of stuff free, like 10 videos a week free. You also, if you can, just thumbs up this video that you like this video in particular. That helps me with the algorithm. Do me a favor, go over to Substack, check out what I'm doing there. It's the Substack newsletter is called So What? I think it's good. A lot of free content. You can become a free content. You can become a free subscriber. You can also become a paid subscriber. So whichever you want to do there would be great. Let me see. I'm being told I'm missing things. Let me get 2 more super chats out of the way. Sorry, I missed these. Mike Witt, not that Mike Witt. Hey, Chris, underrated hot take of mine. If he wouldn't have gotten assassinated, RFK would have been a better president than his brother was. Thoughts? AOC and Warnock for 2028 Democrats. Totally agree on RFK as a better president than JFK. JFK, one of the most overrated presidents of all time. All right, now I'm being told I missed 1 more super chat. So let me just scroll through. Okay, Melon Man. Sorry, I missed this. Grade Trump's second term. Predict 2028 outcome and nominees. Incomplete on his second term. We're 5 months in. 2028 nominees. Don Jr. if he runs. J.D. Vance if Don Jr. doesn't run on the Republican side. On the Democratic side, final 3 will be AOC, Shapiro, Newsom. I don't know who wins. And then hard for me to predict 2028 outcome because I don't know who's going to win the Democratic nomination or the Republican nomination. All right. So as I said, thank you for your support. Check me out tonight. I will be dressed like this, but I'll probably have a tie on. I don't know. If you want to become a member, do it. It's monthly fee. You support me. You'll get more content from me as a reward. If you want to make a recurring donation, you don't want to become a member of Substack or anything else, go to buymeacoffee.com. And you can become a reoccurring member. Tons of people have been doing that lately. I'm super thankful for you. And again, one last reminder, this is what I do for a living. If you like this, if you want to see more of this in your world, I need you to support me financially. It's the only way it works. I hope you don't think that it's begging. I hope that all you know is that I'm out there. I'm proud of the product I'm putting out. I need you to be supportive of it so I can keep doing it and keep expanding. So thank you so much. If you're already a supporter and a subscriber, thank you. If you become one today, whether on Substack, Buy Me a Coffee, or here, thank you. If you can only be for a free subscriber, thank you for that. All right, everyone, take care. Have a good weekend.